Have you ever looked around your life and felt something strangely familiar? Not because it's recognizable, but because it's repetitive? The names change. The places change. Even the goals might shift. But the underlying feeling, the pattern, remains eerily the same. That isn't just déjà vu. It's something far more intricate, more elusive, more powerful. What you're sensing is the existence of quantum loops, hidden, energetic feedback systems that shape the way your reality unfolds. These loops are not physical cages, but energetic structures built from memory, emotion, trauma, belief, and resonance. They are silent, consistent, and embedded in the very fabric of your personal quantum field. They influence your choices, attract specific people, and trigger repeated life events that mimic one another even across decades. This video is not just a theoretical exploration. It's a practical and strategic unraveling of the invisible systems that keep you stuck in predictable cycles, no matter how many vision boards you create, affirmations you repeat, or changes you attempt. Quantum loops operate in silence. You don't hear them, you rarely see them, but you experience them over and over again, through breakups that resemble each other, financial struggles that replay with different variables, emotional spirals that never seem to fully resolve. And just when you think you've outgrown one, another appears, a new face with an old energy, a new situation with an old trigger. Today, we're going to expose this architecture, and not just expose it. We'll go far deeper, analyzing the fractal nature of personal patterns, exploring the structure of repetition fields, and decoding how your thoughts, emotions, and choices send ripples into your field that loop right back to you in physical form. This isn't about blame. It's about energetic intelligence. When you understand how your reality loops work and why they exist, you become capable of transformation on a scale that doesn't just change your story. It changes the very timeline you're on. Here's what you can expect as we move forward. You'll understand how personal reality is formed not through surface-level intention, but through deeper energetic repetitions that anchor your identity and emotional state. You'll gain insight into the mirror-like structure of your quantum field, and why it reflects not just your beliefs, but your most repeated energetic frequencies. You'll learn the exact ways in which patterns turn into fractals, and how they replicate across your relationships, work life, mental states, and even your health. You'll see how quantum feedback loops silently shape your destiny, and how to disrupt them in real, measurable ways. And perhaps most importantly, you'll be guided step by step through identifying and breaking the specific loops you are in right now, even the ones so subtle you never realized they existed. This is not a surface-level motivational talk. This is an energetic deep code reset. So if you're someone who's been asking, why do I keep attracting the same situations? Why do I feel like I'm spinning in place even when I'm working hard to move forward? If you've noticed that no matter what you change on the outside, something on the inside pulls you back to the same baseline of experience. If you've sensed that time itself isn't moving linearly, but that you're cycling through energetic layers of the same story, then stay exactly where you are, because the blueprint to changing all of it begins here. Let's start by exploring the energetic mirror at the heart of every repeated reality. The invisible force that shapes the outer world to match the frequency within. The first layer of the quantum loop. Life does not happen to you. It happens through you, and ultimately back to you. This is the truth most people spend their entire lives overlooking. Not because they're unwilling to accept it, but because the way reality mirrors the self is so subtle, so precise, and so continuous that it becomes easy to mistake it for coincidence, or fate, or just the way life is. But reality is not random. It is responsive. Your external world, the events, the people, the timing of situations behaves like a finely tuned feedback system. It reflects what is consistently held within your energetic field. And when that internal field is shaped by unresolved emotions, limiting beliefs, and habituated thought patterns, your outer experience will loop back those exact same imprints. Again, and again, and again. Here's what you need to understand. Every experience you've had that felt cyclical, every argument that mirrored a past one, every relationship that ended the same way, every effort that fell short in a way that felt all too familiar is a signal. Not just of psychological habits, but of encoded energetic programs. These programs act as attractors, subtle but powerful resonance frequencies that shape reality's form. They draw in situations that match them vibrationally, even if your conscious desire is to attract something completely different. This is the quantum mirror. It operates whether you believe in it or not, whether you're spiritual or scientific, whether you're aware of energy dynamics or have never heard the phrase quantum field before in your life. It doesn't need your awareness. It just needs your repetition. Because repetition, especially emotional repetition, is what encodes a signal into the field. Here's how this works. Every thought has a frequency. Every emotion has a wavelength. When those thoughts and emotions become routine, they leave a persistent imprint in your energetic signature. That imprint becomes an instruction to the field around you, telling it, this is what we expect. This is what we attract. This is what we create. And so it becomes the signal the universe reflects. Not your goals, not your affirmations, but your most consistent energetic state. This is why you can set goals with all the right words, but if the emotion beneath the words is one of lack, fear, or uncertainty, the field mirrors the emotion, not the intention. This is why you can try new methods, switch cities or change your job, but still end up with the same feeling of dissatisfaction or limitation, because the underlying frequency hasn't changed. Only the form has. Now, here's where this becomes vital. Most people misunderstand the mirror. They think it's about judgment or punishment. It's not. The mirror is neutral. It doesn't reward or punish, it reflects and repeats. It's not here to trap you. It's here to show you. It reflects you not to keep you stuck, but to bring awareness to what needs to shift. That's why the same problems come back. That's why the same opportunities fall through. That's why patterns echo across decades, sometimes generations. Because the mirror is trying to make you conscious. It wants you to see what you're holding, what you're broadcasting, so that you can take responsibility, adjust the frequency, and change the loop. But this cannot happen through passive awareness alone. You have to actively observe your field. You have to become the kind of thinker who notices patterns, not just events. The kind of feeler who senses the undercurrent beneath the emotion. The kind of creator who doesn't just set intentions, but inspects the energy those intentions ride on. And that requires stillness, inquiry, reflection. Ask yourself, what parts of my life keep resetting? What themes repeat even when the names, jobs, or environments change? What emotional states seem to find me regardless of what I do to avoid them? This is how you find the loop. When you stop focusing on the individual events and begin to trace the energetic repetition behind them, the illusion of randomness breaks. The quantum mirror becomes clear. And once it's clear, it can be disrupted. But clarity isn't enough. You also need to understand how your current identity anchors the loop in place. Because the mirror reflects not only what you feel, but who you think you are. Identity is the greatest energetic attractor. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, fails, or never quite arrives, the field will reinforce that version of you. It must. It is designed to respond to your sense of self. So, to change the loop, you must change the identity you've been unconsciously broadcasting. This doesn't mean pretending to be someone you're not. It means aligning with the highest, clearest, most sovereign version of who you actually are, and then making that frequency the most dominant signal in your field. And here's the key. When you do this consistently, the mirror shifts. Reality begins reflecting new opportunities, new types of people, new feelings in familiar places, not because the world has changed, but because you have changed your resonance. And the loop cannot survive in a new frequency. Next, we will explore the concept of repetition fields, the invisible architectures that hold your loops in place and why, despite your best efforts, some experiences seem magnetized to you with uncanny precision. Patterns don't repeat in your life because you're unlucky. They repeat because they're encoded. Beneath the surface of what appears to be random experience lies a structured energetic field. That field is held in place by charge, by memory, emotion, trauma, expectation, and belief. When enough charge accumulates around a specific emotion or experience, it doesn't just remain inside you. It begins to generate what's known as a repetition field. A repetition field is an energetic construct. It's not visible to the naked eye. It doesn't appear on a scan or show up in the physical world directly. But its influence is unmistakable. It forms around unresolved energy and stabilizes into a kind of personal gravitational pull, one that draws in experiences, people, and timelines that match the emotional resonance of that charge. In simple terms, unresolved patterns form frequency signatures. When those frequencies become consistent, they generate a field. That field doesn't just sit there passively. It becomes magnetic, and what it attracts is more of itself. This is why you keep encountering similar challenges even after you've consciously moved on. You may have changed your job, ended the relationship, or relocated to a different city. But if the emotional charge was never cleared, the repetition field remains intact. And that field acts like a filter, guiding your perception and shaping your reality so you'll repeat the same emotional experience, even if the outer form looks new. Here's what makes repetition fields so persistent. They are self-reinforcing. Each time you react emotionally in the same way, each time you think the same thought, each time you make the same choice in response to an old trigger, you strengthen the field. You feed it energy. You deepen the groove. Soon, that field begins to operate independently of your conscious will. It becomes automatic. You don't have to think about it or choose it anymore. The loop continues because the field has achieved stability. And once it's stable, it locks you into a timeline, a sequence of experiences that match the structure of that field. That's how timelines form. Not because of destiny or external control, but because of energetic alignment. Let's be very clear. Timelines are not just sequences of events. They're sequences of frequency, and you move through them based on the state of your energy field. So, if you're anchored into a repetition field formed from emotional abandonment, you'll find yourself on timelines where people leave, where support falls through, where you're forced to face things alone. Not because the world is against you, but because the repetition field is attracting timelines that carry the same resonance. You could think of it like orbit. Once you're in the gravitational pull of a pattern, you circle it. You don't need to steer. The momentum takes over. This is how reality becomes a loop. And most people live their entire lives trapped in loops they never consciously created. They operate from beliefs they inherited, react from pain they never resolved, and then wonder why the outcomes don't change, even when they try harder, plan better, or take massive action. You cannot override a repetition field with surface-level action. You can only shift it through energetic disruption and realignment. But to disrupt something, you have to first recognize its structure. So let's break it down. Every repetition field is made up of 5 core components. The emotional charge. This is the original wound, trauma, or experience that created a strong energetic reaction. It's usually intense, often unresolved, and frequently unconscious. The mental narrative. This is the story you told yourself about the experience. It may sound like, I'm not good enough, people always leave, or I have to do everything myself. The identity attachment. This is who you became as a result of the story. You might have taken on the identity of the overachiever, the fixer, the martyr, or the invisible one. The behavioral pattern. This is the automatic response you develop to protect yourself or cope. Avoidance, control, people-pleasing, withdrawal, the attracting frequency. This is the final result, the frequency you emit into the quantum field. It becomes the basis for the experiences that are magnetized to you. Once these 5 elements lock together, they begin to reinforce each other. And over time, they become difficult to separate. You begin to believe that the identity, the story, and the pattern are who you are. But they're not. They're just embedded programs running in the background. Your job is not to destroy the field. Your job is to release the charge. When you clear the emotional intensity, the structure begins to weaken. When you interrupt the narrative, the identity starts to shift. When you change your reaction, the timeline wobbles. And when you do all of this consistently, the field breaks down. It loses stability. The gravity lessens. And new potentials can finally enter. Here's the truth. You are not your patterns. You are the awareness behind them. And the moment you begin observing the loop instead of unconsciously reacting inside it, you reclaim your power. Next, we will explore the deeper mystery of how time operates. Not as a straight line, but as a spiral that brings unresolved energy back into view until it's transformed. Time doesn't move forward. It circles. You're not on a linear journey through life. You're moving along a spiral, one that brings you face to face with recurring experiences not because you failed, but because the energy remains unresolved. The idea that time is linear is a convenient illusion. It gives you a sense of beginning, middle, and end. But in your energetic reality, time behaves differently. It folds. It loops. It represents. And it's designed to bring you back to energetic moments until they are completed. This is why certain patterns show up years apart but feel identical. It's why you meet different people who trigger the same reaction. It's why despite your growth, you occasionally feel like you've returned to square one. But you haven't gone backward. You've moved up the spiral. You're revisiting the same point, but from a higher level of consciousness. This is a design feature, not a flaw. When the spiral brings you back to a familiar emotion, event, or relationship dynamic, it's not punishment. It's an opportunity. The universe isn't trying to test you. It's trying to help you see what you couldn't see before from this higher vantage point. That's the nature of spirals. They circle, but they elevate. And here's where it gets powerful. When you respond differently at a higher loop of the spiral, the energetic imprint shifts. That moment no longer has to repeat. The charge dissolves. The timeline evolves. But most people don't respond differently. They react from habit. They see the pattern and assume they're stuck. They misread the spiral as regression, and that misreading pulls them back into repetition. You must learn to read the spiral correctly. Every time a familiar pattern appears, ask yourself, how am I different now than I was the last time this showed up? What response is available to me now that wasn't before? What version of me is being called forward? Those questions interrupt the automatic loop. They bring presence. And presence is what turns a pattern into a portal. Here's something most never realize. The spiral isn't just repeating experiences. It's repeating frequencies. You're revisiting emotional tones that haven't been fully harmonized. They still hold distortion. Fear, guilt, shame, scarcity, control. And the spiral keeps looping until that distortion is released. You can think of it like music. When a note is out of tune, it creates dissonance. The spiral brings that note back around, again and again until you resolve it, until the vibration becomes clear. And once that happens, you no longer attract that frequency. You no longer move through that particular loop. You shift spirals entirely. You move to a new sequence with new frequencies and new opportunities that were previously out of range. This is how transformation really happens. Not through effort alone, but through frequency calibration. And here's the paradox. Growth looks like circles from the outside, but it feels like liberation from the inside. Because you're not going in circles. You're ascending them. The question is, are you bringing awareness with you as you rise? Or are you just surviving each rotation? The key to transcending loops is conscious interaction with time. Start noticing the moments that feel familiar. Noticing isn't passive. It's active recognition of pattern. It's energetic awareness. And the moment you recognize the spiral, you can alter the response. When you feel the urge to react as you always have, pause. When the trigger activates, breathe. When the old belief speaks, question it. These small shifts are not insignificant. They are energetic pattern disruptors. They are how you step out of old spirals and begin moving into higher frequencies of experience. Next, we will break down how personal behavior patterns, especially emotional responses, become fractal codes that repeat across different areas of life, locking you into recursive feedback systems that replicate across time. There is a deeper intelligence to your patterns. They do not just repeat. They replicate, and they do so with mathematical precision. This is the realm of fractals, infinitely repeating geometric patterns that exist across all scales of nature, from galaxies to neurons, from weather systems to your own life experiences. And once you understand how fractals operate in your quantum field, you begin to see that nothing in your life is isolated. Everything is mirrored. Everything is scaled. Everything is echoed. A fractal, at its core, is a self-similar structure. That means no matter how far you zoom in or out, the pattern remains recognizable. This principle does not just apply to shapes. It applies to energy, to emotion, to behavior, and to experience. Let's break it down. When you experience a significant emotional event, especially one that generates unresolved pain or intensity, it doesn't just fade. That emotional frequency is stored. It becomes a kind of seed pattern, and that seed begins to replicate itself across other dimensions of your life. You may have experienced abandonment in childhood. If that frequency is unresolved, it will not stay in the past. It will echo. It will appear in relationships. It will appear in business. It will appear in moments of spiritual resistance. The names and contexts will change, but the structure of the feeling, the fractal, remains the same. You may not recognize it immediately. That's the nature of fractals. They don't clone. They scale. The same pattern might show up as being ghosted by a friend, or not getting a call back after a job interview, or feeling unsupported in a leadership role. All different scenarios, but one consistent energetic root. This is the architecture of fate. But this fate is not assigned to you. It's generated from within you, broadcast into your field by the emotional geometries you carry. These geometries are shaped by intensity and repetition. The more emotionally charged a pattern is, and the more often it repeats, the more deeply it embeds into your quantum structure. That structure becomes your template, and your template becomes the filter through which your reality is projected. This is why so many people feel like their issues follow them no matter where they go. Because they're not just carrying memories. They're carrying fractal codes, energetic signatures that generate self-similar life experiences over and over again. Here's where this becomes even more powerful. Fractals are not just reflective. They are generative. That means they don't just show you the past. They produce the future. Your unconscious patterns are not simply echoes. They are blueprints, coding your next relationships, your next decisions, your next opportunities. And unless interrupted, they will continue to scale. This is why healing is not optional. It's structural maintenance. If you do not address the core pattern, the seed fractal, you will end up managing the symptoms of that pattern across every area of your life. The relationship, the money, the mental health, the motivation. It will all feel disconnected on the surface, but under the surface, it's the same geometry, playing out across time and space. So how do you identify your fractals? You start by recognizing emotional redundancy. Where do you feel the same emotion in different contexts? What theme keeps arising regardless of your efforts to change the details? Look for emotional echoes. Trace them back. Ask, when was the first time I felt this way? What decision did I make in that moment? What story did I begin to tell about myself? That story is the root pattern. That emotion is the frequency. That belief is the geometry. The moment you become conscious of the fractal, its grip begins to weaken. Awareness starts to dissolve the repetition. But awareness must be followed by recalibration. This is not about fixing the past. It's about updating your energetic architecture. You do this by disrupting the frequency, choosing a new emotional tone, installing a new belief structure, holding a different thought form until it becomes the dominant signal in your field. And here's the key. When the root fractal is altered, the entire structure collapses. That's the power of inner work. You don't have to address every branch of the pattern. You find the core, shift the frequency, and the ripple effect rewrites the rest. Most people never do this because they keep trying to fix reality at the surface. But you cannot change a fractal by changing the environment. You change it by changing the code. Your thoughts are code. Your emotions are code. Your identity is code. These are the tools you use to write your reality. Next, we will examine how those codes become feedback loops, how the quantum field reflects your thoughts and feelings with exact fidelity, creating the echo chamber of your own energetic emissions. Your thoughts are not just mental activity. They are energetic transmissions. And the field around you, the unified field of information, energy, and intelligence, is always listening. This is not metaphor. This is mechanics. Every thought you think emits a frequency. Every emotion you hold generates a wavelength. When those thoughts and emotions are repeated, they become persistent signals, broadcast into the quantum field like a radio station sending out its frequency. And the field responds, not through chance, through coherence. What you send out, in emotional tone, in mental narrative, in felt identity, is matched and mirrored by the quantum field around you. That is the nature of the quantum feedback loop. It is real, it is immediate, and it is exact. The field doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your dominant frequency. That frequency is determined by your most repeated thoughts and feelings, the ones that play in the background of your awareness, often beneath the surface of your conscious intent. This is why you can say, "I am abundant," and still feel broke. You can write affirmations all day and still experience failure. Because the field is not reacting to the surface signal. It is responding to the deeper frequency, the one that's consistent, emotional, and embodied. The loop works like this. You think a thought. That thought generates a feeling. The feeling reinforces the thought. You begin to associate your identity with the thought-feeling loop. The field mirrors it. People and situations arrive that match that frequency. You interpret the external result as evidence. That evidence reinforces the original belief. The cycle continues. This is the trap of the feedback loop. It becomes self-validating. You believe you're not supported. You feel the emotion of that belief. You project that frequency. You unconsciously push support away or filter it out. Then life reflects that lack back to you. And you say, "See? I knew it." That's not truth. That's entrainment. You are training the field to match your frequency, and then mistaking the reflection for reality. This is why it's not enough to set goals. You must calibrate your signal. Your signal is not what you want. It's what you expect. It's what you emotionally prepare for. It's what you unconsciously believe is possible. That's the frequency the field matches. So if you expect abandonment, even while saying you want love. If you prepare for failure, even while striving for success. If you anticipate disappointment, even while visualizing breakthroughs, you are caught in the loop, and the field will deliver according to the dominant expectation, not the temporary affirmation. Here's how you break the loop. You must disrupt the signal. This doesn't mean thinking positively. It means thinking intentionally, emotionally, repetitively, in a way that recalibrates the nervous system and imprints new instructions into the field. You do this by generating elevated emotional states, not just mentally but physically. Gratitude, clarity, presence, worthiness, not as fake masks but as practiced states of being. When you generate these emotions consistently, they become your new frequency. And the field responds accordingly. The feedback loop begins to shift. You start attracting new kinds of people. Synchronicities increase. Obstacles dissolve without logical explanation. And life begins to mirror the new signal with precision, just as it mirrored the old one. The difference is now you're in conscious interaction with the field. You are no longer reacting to the reflection. You are programming the projector. But this requires discipline, not inaction, in awareness. You must become the observer of your own broadcast. Watch the thoughts. Listen to the emotional tone. Ask constantly, is this what I want the field to mirror? If not, change it. Not with force, with choice. And do it again and again, until the new signal is stronger than the old one. That's how loops are reversed. That's how patterns are replaced. That's how you stop attracting the same old reality and begin experiencing results that seem magical, but are actually mechanical. Next, we will expose the most hidden part of all. The way familiar pain becomes invisible, and why you often don't even realize you're stuck in a loop until it has defined your life. Loops are not hard to break because they are strong. They're hard to break because they're hidden. The most persistent loops in your reality are often the ones you can't see at all. Not because you're ignoring them, but because they've become so familiar that they no longer register as problems. They register as normal, as just how life is. This is the camouflage of familiar pain. It embeds itself into your identity so seamlessly that it becomes part of your operating system. And once that happens, you stop questioning it. You adapt to it. You build around it. You even protect it, because without realizing it, you start to believe that removing it would threaten your sense of self. Pain that becomes familiar is rarely challenged. You learn to tolerate the same kind of relationship disappointment. You justify the same cycles of scarcity. You explain away the same emotional numbing. And through repetition, you accept a loop as reality, even when it's rooted in distortion. That's the danger of normalization. The human brain is designed to filter out repetition. It's an efficiency mechanism. Prioritizes novelty and background deletes what it deems as stable. This means once a loop has repeated enough times, it vanishes from your conscious awareness. It becomes part of the scenery, and you stop noticing it unless you deliberately train yourself to notice what's no longer obvious. Most people don't. They change jobs but not beliefs. They end relationships but not identity patterns. They move cities but not frequency. And so the loop continues, just rebranded, just wearing new clothes. It's not that they don't want change. It's that the loop has become invisible. To understand why this happens, you have to examine two primary mechanisms: emotional numbing and cognitive filtering. Emotional numbing occurs when you experience a feeling so often that it becomes muted. Not because the pain has gone, but because your nervous system has adapted. You stop reacting to the hurt. But adaptation is not resolution. The pattern remains even if the signal is weaker. You're not healing, you're just less sensitive to the wound. Cognitive filtering happens when your brain stops registering repeated information as meaningful. You stop asking, why does this keep happening? You stop feeling shocked by patterns. You start to expect them. And expectation becomes acceptance. You don't resist the loop because you no longer notice the loop. You call it just life. You call it just the way people are. But it's not life. It's programming. And programming can be changed. The first step is awareness, not vague reflection, but sharp, forensic observation. You must look at your life like a detective. You must trace the patterns, cross-reference the timelines, see the similarities in situations that seem different. And you must do this without self-judgment. Here's a key distinction. Pain that is familiar is not proof of personal failure. It's evidence of unexamined structure. Familiar pain often begins in childhood. It forms around a moment that was too intense to fully process. So the system does what it knows best: it adapts, creates a belief. It builds a protection strategy. And then it moves on. But the loop remains. The emotion stores. The belief solidifies. And the strategy becomes a personality trait. You don't remember the origin. You just live the echo. This is how someone becomes bad with money, or always drawn to unavailable people, or unable to feel joy without guilt. These aren't just tendencies. They are loop symptoms, signs of embedded patterns running on autopilot beneath the surface of conscious thought. So how do you bring invisible loops into view? You study contrast. Ask yourself, where in my life do I experience repetitive tension? What scenarios trigger emotions that feel disproportionately intense or eerily familiar? What outcomes do I secretly expect, even if I say I want something different? The answers to these questions will begin to reveal where the pain has gone numb, where you've adapted instead of transformed, where the loop has embedded itself under the disguise of personality, preference, or pragmatism. This process is uncomfortable, because it exposes how much of your life has been guided by unchallenged assumptions. But it is also liberating, because once the loop is visible, it can be dismantled. And you don't need to go hunting for every wound. Often, identifying the central themes is enough. Most people live their lives within just 2 or 3 core emotional loops: abandonment, inadequacy, failure, control, rejection, scarcity. These loops produce countless branches. But the root is simple. It's consistent, and it's traceable. Once you see it, you can change the signal. But clarity must come first. Familiar pain thrives in darkness. It survives by disguising itself as truth. So your greatest tool is not strength. It's awareness, precision, and the willingness to question what you've accepted without evidence. Next, we will apply that precision directly. You will learn how to map your personal loops, identify their energetic structure, and uncover the patterns that have shaped your reality without your permission. Patterns do not lie. They reveal. If you're willing to study them, not just react to them, they will show you everything. They will expose the unconscious agreements you've made. They will highlight the internal scripts you've been repeating. And they will reveal the exact places where energy has become stuck, where identity has been limited, and where reality has been shaped by frequency rather than freedom. This is the practice of loop mapping. Loop mapping is not a spiritual idea. It is an energetic discipline. It is the act of identifying recurring experiences in your life and tracing them back to their emotional root, mental narrative, and behavioral reflex. The goal is clarity. The result is transformation. Let's begin with the structure. Every loop, no matter how complex, can be decoded using 5 essential questions. What keeps happening, no matter how much I try to change? Look for repetition. Focus on results, not intentions. What outcomes repeat? What situations cycle? What goals feel permanently out of reach despite consistent effort? How do these outcomes make me feel? Name the emotion. Is it frustration, shame, abandonment, pressure, helplessness? Find the dominant emotional tone. This is the frequency that shapes the loop. Where else have I felt this same emotion? Trace it back. Look for earlier moments in life where the emotional tone appeared. Don't worry about precision. Memory is a guide, not a record. Focus on resonance. What belief was formed in that earlier moment? Identify the story. What did you begin to believe about yourself, others, or the world as a result of that emotion? That belief is the code. That code shapes the field. How have I been acting in alignment with that belief? Look at behavior. How has your life been organized around avoiding that emotion? What roles have you played to survive it? What choices have you made to stay safe? These 5 questions form the basis of the map. Now apply them across domains. Relationships, money, health, creativity, leadership, family. You will begin to see the fractal, the same emotional story appearing in different costumes. This is your personal quantum cycle. It's not personal. It's programmable. Let's take an example. You notice that you often feel unsupported. You do everything yourself. People seem to let you down. Opportunities fall through. You answer the first question. This keeps happening despite asking for help or trying to collaborate. Then you examine the emotional frequency, isolation, resentment, pressure. You trace it back. You remember being the strong one growing up. You weren't allowed to need help. You identify the belief, no one is there for me. Then the behavior becomes clear. You don't trust others. You don't delegate. You expect disappointment. And you get it again and again. That's a loop. Fully visible. Fully breakable. Once identified, you begin to shift it. You challenge the belief. You open space for support. You release control in safe places. You broadcast a new signal. And slowly the loop destabilizes. The repetition fades. The timeline begins to shift. This is not theoretical. It is mechanical. And it works because the quantum field is obedient to frequency. To make this process even more potent, incorporate 3 specific tools. Timeline journaling. Track your life experiences chronologically. Identify the emotional tone of major events. Watch for patterns that span years or decades. This builds a visual pattern map. Dream recall. Your dreams often replay emotional themes from your quantum field. Keep a journal. Look for recurring symbols, emotional tones, or unresolved narratives. Energetic scanning. Learn to feel your field. Scan your body and awareness daily. Where do you feel heaviness, resistance, repetition? These sensations often point to active loops. Loop mapping is not something you do once. It's a living process. The more you practice, the more precise you become. And the more precise you become, the more influence you gain over your own field. This is the foundation of quantum mastery. Next, we will introduce specific mental disruptors. Techniques that shift your cognitive and energetic state instantly, break momentum, and create space for a new timeline to emerge. There comes a point where awareness is no longer enough. You've identified the loop. You've traced its emotional signature. You've mapped the fractal. You've seen the echo in your relationships, your finances, your emotions. But seeing the loop does not automatically change the loop. Observation initiates the shift, but interruption completes it. This is the function of mental disruptors. A mental disruptor is any cognitive or energetic maneuver that breaks the momentum of a pattern thought stream. It forces the mind out of autopilot. It destabilizes the internal architecture that sustains the loop. And it opens a crack, a small window, through which you can inject a new frequency, a new choice, a new direction. When executed with intention, mental disruptors can override years of encoded programming. Not because they erase history, but because they interrupt identification. They stop the unconscious fusion between thought, feeling, and identity that allows the loop to regenerate. Here's why this is essential. Every loop is sustained by your identification with it. You say, "This always happens to me." You say, "I'm just wired this way." You say, "It's who I am." And that belief becomes the blueprint. But your identity is not fixed. It's a composition, a frequency playlist built from repeated thoughts and emotional associations. When you change the track, the entire song of your reality begins to shift. The first step is to recognize your default mental pathways. These are the automatic scripts that run when you're triggered, challenged, or uncertain. They sound familiar. They feel true. But they are mechanical, not sovereign. Common default scripts include, "I already know how this ends. This is just like last time. It's not safe to trust. I'm not ready. Something bad is about to happen." These thoughts are not information. They are echoes. They are residues of earlier loops trying to replicate themselves by influencing your current perception. A disruptor breaks that echo. Let's explore the most effective disruptors and how to use them. This technique uses shock. When a limiting belief arises, you respond with an extreme contradiction, not to convince yourself but to rupture the pattern. Example, default, "No one ever sees my value." First, "I'm the most magnetic presence in every room, and everyone feels it." Say it with intensity. Say it out loud. Say it even if it feels absurd. The goal is not accuracy. It's destabilization. When the brain encounters a radically new possibility, even for a split second, it pauses the loop. That pause creates choice. This is not a typical breathwork exercise. It is a deliberate interruption of momentum. When you feel yourself sliding into a loop, mentally, emotionally, or behaviorally, you stop. Immediately, you pause. You do nothing. You breathe. You say one sentence internally. This is not a command. This tells your system that the thought or feeling you're experiencing is a signal, not an order. And that distinction begins to separate awareness from reaction. The identity you hold reinforces your timeline. So to disrupt the loop, you speak from the version of you that exists outside of it. Use phrases like, "I no longer choose that story. That version of me is archived. This response is outdated." Each of these phrases weakens the loop's authority. They reassign power back to the observing self, the field architect. The brain follows the energy of your questions. If your internal questions are loop-based, "Why does this always happen?" the answers you receive will reinforce the loop. Instead, ask, "What timeline is available right now that contradicts this pattern? What belief must be true for this not to happen again? Who am I becoming that no longer fits this loop?" These questions invite new pathways. They activate creativity. They demand access to unused aspects of your consciousness. This is an embodied disruptor. When a loop activates, physically do something unexpected. Snap your fingers. Tap your chest. Stand up and say a code word. Change rooms. Change posture. You're telling your body, this moment is different. The more senses involved, the stronger the disruption. And here's what matters most. It's not about perfect technique. It's about frequency of interruption. Every time you break the pattern, even slightly, you loosen its grip. Even if it returns, even if it persists, each disruption destabilizes its foundation. And over time, the structure begins to dissolve. But a disruptor alone is not enough. It must be followed by replacement. When the loop cracks open, it creates space. That space must be filled with new identity, new thought, new behavior, or the loop will return, often reinforced. So after every disruption, reinforce your desired frequency. Speak it, visualize it, move as if it's true, and most importantly, feel it. Not just in your head, but in your system. This is the loop breaker formula. You don't need to get it perfect. You just need to get it moving. Next, we will explore how to go beyond mental disruption and enter the energetic domain. How to use movement, breath, sound, and vibrational shocks to dislodge the static patterns that live in your field. Thought alone cannot shift the deepest loops. Because some loops are not mental. They are energetic. They live in the body, in the field, in the nervous system. They are held in muscle memory, emotional residue, and vibrational tone. And no matter how much you reflect, analyze, or reframe, if the energy remains, the loop reactivates. This is why energetic disruption is essential. Energetic disruption is the process of using direct vibration, sound, movement, breath, or electromagnetic signals to shake loose stagnant frequencies, to flush out charge, to reset the field, to shock your system out of a recursive identity state. Unlike mental disruptors, these techniques bypass cognition entirely. They don't require belief. They don't need logic. They operate on resonance. Let's begin with the body, your primary frequency conductor. The body holds trauma as tension. That tension becomes structural. Over time, it hardens into posture, habit, and emotional baseline. The simplest way to interrupt this is shaking. Stand up. Loosen your joints. Begin shaking every part of your body. Arms, legs, hips, neck, spine. Let the movement become chaotic. Let it feel strange. Let it grow. As you shake, exhale sharply. Sound if needed. Think of the movement as static discharge. This breaks the loop of tension. It clears frozen signals. It reboots the body's vibrational range. Breath is a bridge between the conscious and unconscious. Most loops create a shallow, repetitive breath pattern. Energetic disruption comes from altering the rhythm. Use a rapid 3-part inhale followed by a sharp exhale. Inhale into the belly. Inhale into the chest. Inhale into the throat. Exhale powerfully. Repeat for 2 minutes. This pattern sends a shock through the system. It elevates oxygen. It opens trapped emotion. It unlocks freeze states. After this, lie down. Feel. Let the release happen. Sound carries frequency directly into the body. High vibration tones disrupt low vibration fields. Use binaural beats, singing bowls, or frequency-specific tracks. 396 Hz for fear release, 528 Hz for DNA repair, etc. Place sound directly over the heart, solar plexus, or sacral region, where loops are most often stored. Let the sound vibrate into the tissue, not just heard, felt. Cold water resets your nervous system. Expose yourself to a cold shower or ice bath for 60 to 90 seconds. Focus on breath. This resets the loop between thought and reaction. It builds capacity. It interrupts fear spirals. Cold forces presence. And presence is the end of momentum. Your field can accumulate energetic static from technology, environments, and emotional debris. Use grounding techniques, bare feet on earth, salt baths, or electromagnetic detox tools to flush these distortions. A cluttered field cannot integrate new frequencies. Clean it often. These disruptions are not just supportive. They are foundational, because without energetic clearance, every new frequency you try to install is layered on top of distortion. You cannot manifest clarity through a scrambled signal. And here's the deeper truth. Energetic disruption is not punishment. It's permission. You're telling your system, you're safe enough to feel something different. You're strong enough to handle vibration. You're clear enough to choose again. It's not about intensity. It's about integrity. The more authentic the release, the more aligned the new pattern will be. But like all transformation, consistency matters. These disruptions are not one-time resets. They are hygiene, just like brushing your teeth, just like tuning an instrument. Make it ritual, make it rhythm, make it sacred. Because every time you disrupt the pattern, physically, emotionally, energetically, you tell your system, the loop is no longer the default. You signal your field. We are ready for a new configuration. Next, we will explore how visualization, when done correctly, becomes a tool not of fantasy but of timeline programming. You'll learn to bend reality by broadcasting coherent, emotionally charged images into the quantum structure of possibility. Visualization is not a soft practice. It is a neurological and quantum command mechanism. It is not wishful thinking, fantasy play, or hopeful imagery. It is technical. It is deliberate. And when used with precision, it is one of the most effective ways to bend a loop. Loop bending occurs when you intentionally override the existing energetic signal in your field by broadcasting a higher frequency image infused with coherent emotional charge. This image, if repeated with emotional consistency, becomes a new attractor, a new loop in the making. To understand this, you must first understand how the brain and the field interact. The brain cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined event and a physically experienced one. From a neural perspective, the same pathways light up, the same chemicals are released, and the same associations are formed. The subconscious treats imagined experiences as real data, real enough to influence emotion, behavior, and belief. Now combine that with quantum principles. Your thoughts generate electromagnetic signals. Your emotions infuse those signals with intensity. When you visualize an outcome with emotional clarity and repetition, you are broadcasting a frequency that imprints into your personal field. This frequency begins to rewire your inner architecture, your beliefs, your expectations, your emotional baseline. And those changes ripple outward, influencing how the quantum field organizes matter and opportunity around you. Visualization, then, is not escape. It is energetic authorship. It is how you design new loops before life does it for you. But here's the mistake most people make. They visualize without precision. They use vague images. They attach weak emotions. They visualize once or twice and then stop when results don't appear immediately. That's not loop bending. That's mental dabbling. To bend a loop, your visualization must meet 3 criteria. The image must match the feeling. If you visualize success but feel doubt while doing it, the frequency is incoherent. The field does not respond to the image. It responds to the dominant emotion. This means you must emotionally practice the state of the new reality, not just imagine it. You must feel it in your chest. Breathe it into your body. Let it color your posture, your eyes, your voice. Otherwise, the image has no charge. And without charge, there is no broadcast. One visualization session does not shift a loop. Repetition is what installs the new pattern. You are working against years of internal programming. The new signal must be stronger and more frequent than the old one. Daily practice, multiple times a day, short bursts, long sessions, eyes open, eyes closed. Wake up with the image. Sleep with the image. Live in it until your subconscious accepts it as familiar. Vague images produce vague outcomes. Be specific, not just in detail, in structure. See where you are, what you're doing, how you're breathing, who you're being. The power of the image lies in how convincingly you construct it. Now let's walk through a process that activates all 3. Step 1. Identify the loop you're replacing. Don't just imagine a better life. Target a specific loop. Scarcity, rejection, self-doubt, emotional isolation. Define it clearly. Know what you're replacing. The clearer the contrast, the cleaner the install. Step 2. Construct the opposite experience. This is not wish fulfillment. It's frequency reversal. If the loop is abandonment, visualize unconditional support. If the loop is lack, visualize easeful overflow. If the loop is failure, visualize mastery in motion. Be extreme. Be detailed. Build a reality that contradicts the old signal on every level. Step 3. Infuse emotion. Now activate the emotional current. How would it feel to live in that version of you? Consistently. Not just in peak moments, but as a baseline. Feel that. Stay in that. Breathe into that. Emotion is the delivery mechanism. Step 4. Practice in multiple states. Visualize when you're calm, when you're tired, when you're anxious, when you're excited. The goal is emotional range, to make the new loop accessible in every state, not just when conditions are perfect. You are not visualizing a fantasy. You are rehearsing a timeline, and your field is listening. Here's what begins to happen. At first, the image feels foreign. You feel resistance. You question its realism. That's natural. That's the old loop trying to survive. But with repetition, the image gains mass. It becomes emotionally familiar. And when it becomes familiar, it becomes energetically active. Soon, small events start to shift. Conversations go differently. Opportunities arise. People treat you as if you're already the version of yourself you've been visualizing. And they're not wrong. You've already changed. The field is just catching up. Loop bending is not immediate, but it is inevitable if the signal is consistent. This is the art of living forward, of sending your energy ahead of your circumstances, of leading reality with frequency instead of following it with reaction. You are the broadcaster. You are the builder. Next, we will explore the terrain of parallel versions, how you're already existing across multiple timelines, and how to shift consciously into the one where your highest potential is not just possible but already underway. You are no longer unconscious inside the machine. You are at the command panel of your field. What once appeared as chaos now reveals itself as structure. What once felt like fate now feels like code. And what once looped without your permission can now be interrupted, redesigned, and replaced, because you are no longer the echo. You are the frequency. This is what it means to live as a quantum creator. Not to control every detail, not to predict every outcome, but to shape the underlying field through conscious thought, emotion, and action, knowing that reality is not a static place you exist within, but a dynamic reflection of the energy you emit. You've seen the inner mechanics, the repetition fields, the fractal patterns, the spiraling timelines, the silent contracts made with pain, the subtle gravitational pull of unresolved identity. Now it's time to move differently, because until now your loops have run you. But from this point forward, you run the signal. Escaping the loop matrix is not a dramatic event. It's a sequence of intentional recalibrations. And when practiced consistently, those recalibrations remove you from the momentum of your history and align you with the trajectory of your potential. Let's build that strategy together. Piece by piece. No guesswork. No mysticism. Just aligned action based on energetic architecture. Step 1. Establish your primary loop pattern. You must know what you're exiting, not philosophically but structurally. Identify the core pattern that has shaped the majority of your challenges. Trace it across multiple domains. Find the common emotional denominator. Pinpoint the original belief that sustains it. This is your primary loop. Name it. Don't spiritualize it. Don't justify it. Just name it. Whether it's abandonment, rejection, unworthiness, control, failure, invisibility, write it clearly. This is the doorway you will walk through every time you shift your frequency. Step 2. Collapse the false identity. Every loop survives because you believe a version of yourself that only exists inside that pattern. You believe you're someone who always struggles. You believe you're someone who has to earn love. You believe you're someone who just doesn't get picked. You believe you're someone who's not allowed to rest. That identity is not you. It's a construct, and it dissolves the moment you stop referencing it as true. So challenge it. Speak directly to it. Out loud. Say, "This version of me is expired." Say, "I release this role. It was never mine." Say, "This pattern is a costume I no longer wear." Then move differently. Think as the new identity. Act without the old signal, even if it feels foreign, especially when it feels foreign. Familiar does not mean aligned. Step 3. Design your signal. Now choose your new identity, not as fantasy, but as architecture. Who are you without the loop? How do you speak? How do you walk into a room? What do you tolerate? What do you allow? What do you expect? What does your energy say before your words say anything? Write this down, not as affirmation, as instruction. Build a profile of the creator you're becoming. This is your energetic blueprint. And here's what matters. It must feel foreign at first, because it's not from your past. It's from your potential. Trust the discomfort. That's the stretch. Step 4. Reinforce through ritual. Frequency does not hold itself. It must be reinforced. You do this not through occasional effort, but daily ritual. Visualize your field in the new pattern. Speak from the identity you've chosen. Move your body as if the loop has ended. Practice breath, sound, or movement daily to clear static. Ritual is how you outpace the gravitational pull of your old timeline. It's not a luxury. It's your quantum steering wheel. Do not skip this. Do not overcomplicate it. Keep it simple. Keep it consistent. Make it your rhythm. Step 5. Catch the echo early. The old loop may return, but not because it's winning, because it's dying. Echoes are not evidence of failure. They are signals of collapse. The system is trying to reassert itself. When an old thought appears, when a familiar fear returns, when an old trigger fires, pause. Say, this is an echo, not a command. Then override it. With behavior, with energy, with alignment. The faster you catch the echo, the weaker it becomes. It doesn't need to disappear instantly. It just needs to lose its influence. That's loop mastery. Step 6. Collapse and integrate parallel timelines. You are not starting from scratch. The version of you who already lives loop-free exists now. Your job is not to build them. Your job is to become them. Collapse the space between the current you and the parallel you by acting as if the merge has completed. Feel their decisions. Speak their words. Expect their outcomes. Drop their boundaries. Trust their instincts. This is not roleplay. This is quantum integrity. The more you act as the merged version, the less permission the old version has to operate. Integration becomes seamless, automatic. Reality must reflect what you consistently embody. Step 7. Teach through presence. This final step is subtle but vital. Your presence becomes your teaching, not in a formal sense, in a vibrational one. Others will feel the coherence of someone who is no longer looping. They will sense the clarity, the boundary, the emotional freedom, the lack of struggle, and they will either rise to meet it or fall away. Let both happen. This is your field organizing itself. Your loops attracted certain relationships, certain roles, certain dynamics. Your new signal may disorganize them. Let it. You are not here to hold together a matrix that only existed to reinforce an outdated identity. You are here to live free, not perform freedom, not speak about freedom. Live it, radiate it, normalize it. That is your final transmission. You have now exited the unconscious structure. You are aware of the loops. You are aware of the field. You are aware of the mechanics. This is no longer a game of mystery. It is a game of mastery. The quantum field does not care how long you've been stuck. It only cares what signal you're broadcasting now. And now, you know how to broadcast on purpose. So stop looping. Start transmitting. Start choosing. Start building timelines that don't mirror your past, but your potential. And let this be your baseline from this moment forward. You are no longer living in a pattern. You are the pattern. You are no longer reacting to reality. You are writing it in every thought, every breath, every frequency. You are a quantum creator. Live accordingly,